Hi, I'm Taylor Howe with Lebanon Now, and we are delighted to be not only joined but hosted today by the 57th Governor of the state of Missouri, Mike Parson. Governor Parson, thank you for having us in the 57 Foundation.
Great to have you here today, Taylor.
Yeah, thank you. So this interview is going to premiere, or parts of it, on election night, August 4th, 2026. And you have had your name on the ballot several times. And so I wanted to ask you a couple of questions just as a person about election night.
Sure.
So you started running for a local office, a sheriff.
Yes.
And ran all the way up to the big office,
Yeah.
which isn't just a term. The governor's office is a massive room.
Yeah.
What changed over those successive elections, and what was the same about election night? What didn't change?
You know, I think if you go back to your first elections in the political arena, you always probably is the most important election, I would say, that I've ever had on a personal basis. Now, granted, I was very proud to be the governor of the state of Missouri, but the first time you run and you put your name on the ballot, you're now running on totally on who you are. And when you become the sheriff of Polk County at the time, what people are trusting you to take care of them, to make sure they're safe. And I think, to me, these are the people you go to church with, these are the people your kids go to school with, these are the people you see at the grocery store, and all of a sudden they're saying, hey, we got enough faith in you to make a good sheriff. So I think that first election was probably the most humbling election that I really had, because you were so close to the people that were voting for you. And as you move up the ladder, as to whether it's the House or the Senate or a statewide, it's very difficult to know people like you know people in that first election, and you win those elections. So I think you have the basic fundamentals of running for office on the local level, and then the further you go up, it's a little harder to be really in touch with the people like you was at home.
Okay. You famously never lost an election. Every time your name's been on the ballot, you came out victorious. How does that shape your election night? Does that make you more nervous as you go along and there could always be that first? Or is that something where you think you actually did gain some confidence that the people have affirmed you over and over again and you're the right guy for the job?
Yeah, you know what? I think one of the things you have to do is be a good listener. And I think that's an art that's maybe lost in the political arena some today. But the people that really listen to the everyday people and understand what it is they want, and can you deliver what it is they want? Don't make false promises if you can't make them. But I think the whole concept is just be what it is they want. You know, be who you are. You know, I tell people all the time, the worst mistake you'll ever make is trying to be somebody you're not. So if you're not the smartest guy in the room, don't try to be the smartest guy in the room. If you're not the prettiest guy around or a girl, don't try to be. You know, just be who you are and be fundamentally, so people will feed off of that and to say, hey, I like the guy because I think he's the real guy. You know, he's like me. And I think you strive to do that. And then I think one of the things I've always had confidence in, I never, ever believed anybody would outwork me. I mean, I just had that old basic roots of hard work. And I'm thinking, okay, if I'm going to do this, I don't want to be the guy sitting at the breakfast table the next morning and say, I wish I would have done this, or we should have done this differently. I want to put everything on the table I can. And that's the way I approached every election, no matter who it was or how big the task was. We just campaigned hard, and I wanted to meet as many people as I could, because I always thought if I could get to meet somebody and they could see who I was, it was much better than all the ads you can put on TV and everything. So we just worked hard at it.
So it's just a win or lose, you always were able to hang your head or hold your head high.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, my oldest brother told me one time, actually when I became governor, he said, little brother, I'm going to tell you one thing. He said, when you went up there, you had your head up. He says, when you come home, you make sure you still got that head up. And I never forgot those words he told me. And that's just kind of the way I approached every election. I wanted to do a good job, and I wanted to run hard. And I wanted people to have a belief in me that I was going to do the right thing if I had the opportunity. And that's what we strive for every time. And I think in today's world, in politics, I think people are depending way too much on money and consultants and advertising and all these other kind of ways to win. And I'm not saying they don't work, but I'm just saying I think people are hungry for a down-to-earth politician that's like them, that started with a little different beginning than being groomed to be a politician someday. And I think people are looking for that person, and I hope we all find it. I know I am. And I hope someday I find that, and I hope somebody like that ends up being the President of the United States.
Well, on that note, talking about what you're looking for, you had the unique opportunity of appointing several statewide office holders who were either reaffirmed by the voters when they went up on the ballot themselves, or they've moved on. We could start with Eric Schmidt, now U.S. Senator, but you had appointed him to Attorney
Right.
General. Your next Attorney General appointment is now the Deputy Director of the FBI.
Correct.
So he has gone on to glorious things. Your Solicitor General is now the Solicitor General of the United States and on the short list for a Supreme Court nomination.
Yes.
As well as the other appointments that you made. So what Mike Parson is looking for in a leader actually was very important whenever you were in office.
Yeah.
But like you said, having your finger on the pulse that all these people were reaffirmed by the voters, what do you look for in a leader? You've said hard work,
Yeah.
that you want someone who's going to go out there that's going to be a little bit different, it's going to be more like the people. But what are some of those characteristics as a person that you look for now that you're back in our shoes as a citizen voting?
Yeah. Well, I don't think there's any question. Picking those 5 elected officials and they got reaffirmed by the people was a good day, and to see where their careers have gone. But I'm going to tell you the whole secret to why I picked the people I picked is called public service. Are you really got a servant's heart? Are you really willing to sacrifice for other people? Not yourself, but for other people. And I think even some of the picks I made wasn't the most popular in the party ranks, per se, but I just knew these people. I knew most all of them. And I didn't say I was the best friends of them. I didn't say I always agreed with everything they'd done, but I thought they would work hard and they would do what was best for Missouri and the people of the state. And I think when you do that, you think, okay, do you make the right decisions? But I'm going to tell you what, I didn't give it much of a second thought on every one I did. Once I did it and I said, this is my person, then that's who I was going to put in those positions. And I think they've all proven to be very successful in their own careers. But I also think I was smart enough to know I'm actually really building the future of the party in the state of Missouri. All of these gentlemen that was there will play a part in the future history of our state.
Yeah, and not just to single out the guys, you did appoint the first all or female majority of the Missouri Supreme Court, so it wasn't something that anybody could say anything about that in that direction either. I want to talk a little bit now about your legacy because we're joined here again in the 57 Foundation. The 57 Foundation is your foundation that is meant to keep people in the workforce.
Right.
And we talked a little bit about that as we walked around and looked at the room. Why, after getting out of office, did you say, I don't want to be done with the good work, even if I am done with government?
Yeah, well, I think one of the priorities I always had was workforce development, with that and infrastructure, because I think that everything builds off those two things. And when I got out, I had been very fortunate in my own career and in my own life, and I was in a position where I thought I could raise funds to help this foundation, and really that's what I set out to do. And of all the programs you have, all the state and federal programs, and I know about every one of them, how they distribute money. And there's a lot of good programs for veterans, for disabled people, for different kinds of resources. But the one thing we don't do is we don't help the working class person that's out there every day trying to be a good model citizen, whether he's working in a grocery store, whether he's working in a convenience store, whether it's the waitress, whether it's somebody on that basic level jobs, or maybe a senior going back to work. All I want to do as a foundation is set up is to make sure they can go to work the next morning. So if the old car breaks down, then we're going to help them fix the car. If they need a little help with daycare, we're going to help them with daycare. So in today's world, daycare especially, a lot of grandparents watch the kids anymore, including me and Teresa do the same thing sometimes. But at some point, something happens to one of the grandparents and they can't do the daycare. So now you got to go buy it or for a few days until they get back to where they can. And I think those are the kind of people we want to try to help. Maybe it's a question, the refrigerator goes out, the car insurance comes due, and something else happens in your life, which happens every day to all of us at some point. Maybe we're going to buy the refrigerator. Maybe we're going to help them make sure they got insurance on the car to go to work. But they have to have a job. They have to continue to maintain that job, first help, and we're one and done. We're going to help you one time, so don't come back to me every month and say, hey, we want this, we want that. It's just like, we want to make sure you get to work that day. And we've already been able to do that to several people, and it's a pretty good feeling to be able to do it. And you have to be referred. You can't get online and ask for it. Somebody in the community's got to say, hey, I know this person that needs a little help. So that's kind of how the foundation's set up. That's a quick version of it. But again, it is actually set up independent from me. I don't really have anything to do per se other than help them raise funds with it and just, just try to help people out a little bit. I just feel like I still got some work to do, and it don't have to be in the government place.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, in closing, Governor Parson, I want to talk just a little bit about the future of the state of Missouri. If you look around for reasons to have your head drooping, you're going to find some negative things.
Sure.
But if you look around for reasons to be hopeful, I think you'll find those too. And as governor, I'm sure you saw many of those reasons. So if you would kind of leave our viewers with some of those reasons that you saw as governor and you continue to see to be hopeful for the future of the state of Missouri.
Well, I think, number one, we're blessed to live in Missouri. Anytime you're in the middle of the United States, and I'll especially say Missouri, with the type of upbringing most of us have, the characteristics that we all have coming from the Midwest, I want to say, I think faith plays a big role. I think family plays a big role. And then I think freedom plays a big role. I think all of those things are pretty well fundamental things that we have in this state. And I think by all means, whether you disagree on a lot of the hot button political issues, at the end of the day, most people believe the same. They want to enjoy life. Mm-hmm. They want to raise their families. They want a good education. They want to feel safe. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what Missourians are all about. So I think what you got to figure out for the future in politics, it's got into such a divisive arena that somewhere along the way that's got to stop. And I don't know how that's going to be, whether it's the federal level, or even the state level sometimes. But at some point, you got to govern. Mm-hmm. The job when you go to Jeff City as a rep or a senator, as a statewide candidate, the first thing you should be feel humble that people give you the honor to be there. And then it's all about being a servant. You should be there to govern, not to run politics. I would say this all the time. 80% is political getting into office, and 20% maybe the work. But when you get in office, 80% should be about governing, and 20% should be about politics. And I think we've got that turned around so many times where everybody's trying to make a political stance. When at the end of the day, look at the things that we all agree on, regardless whether you're Democrat, Republican, you're St. Louis or Bolivar or Lebanon or wherever. What are the things you agree on and get them done? I mean, we basically built our whole administration on that attitude, and it works. I mean, we lowered taxes. We lowered the state income tax 6 times when I was governor. We had the lowest unemployment rate in our state's history. We had record revenues in the state of Missouri by basically just putting people first and putting the state first and not worrying how the politics shape out. Just do what it is people want. We make it so difficult sometimes. So I hope somebody's going to go back and say, you know what, old Mike Parson did a pretty good job. Wouldn't hurt to go back to do some of those fundamental things that he did. And not everybody's going to like you when you're in politics. You got to understand that. But at the end of the day, is what did you get accomplished when you're in that arena? So if I was talking about the future of Missouri, anybody that goes up there, I would say, what is it you want to accomplish once you get there? It's not what you got there. Okay, you got it. You won the election. You're there. Now, what are you going to do? And I think that's the hard question to be. I've always said, however I voted, I wanted to have a recorded vote, whether it was popular, whether it wasn't. But I want people back home to know how I voted on different things, to be able to do that. And if I can't go back home and explain why I voted for something, then I don't belong there. You just don't. And I would say, if you can't be honest with yourself and be who you are, you're in the wrong business. And frankly, there's people up there that shouldn't be up there, And I think that's up to us as the voters to make sure, just because somebody runs an ad and they sell these fancy things and they look all like professional, who are they really like, and are they really going to be who they are when they get up there? And I think that's what we got to look for. But look, there's a lot of good people out there. We just need to encourage good people to do the right thing and to be public servants. I go back to that every day. Just humble yourself to be a servant, and you can be successful up there.
All right. Well, Mike Parson, 57th Governor of the state of Missouri, thanks for joining us on Lebanon Now. And thank you for tuning in.
Thank you, Taylor.